ladies and gentlemen. Being nice all the time is often confused with being kind, but the two are not the same. Niceness, when overdone, is not a reflection of your inner strength or integrity, but rather a fear of upsetting others, a fear of confrontation, and often a subconscious effort to gain approval. While it's good to be courteous and understanding, always being the nice guy can make people see you as someone who can be easily swayed, manipulated, or overlooked. When people see you constantly trying to please them, they begin to assume you have no backbone, no clear identity, and no strong principles. It's not their fault. It's the message you're sending out. This behavior often stems from a deep-rooted need to be liked or a misunderstanding of what it means to have true respect in relationships. Respect isn't something you can earn by constantly saying yes, avoiding conflict, or letting others step over you. Respect comes from how you stand up for yourself, how you communicate your boundaries, and how you carry yourself in the face of challenges. If you're always playing the nice guy, people might like you superficially, but liking someone is different from respecting them. Respect demands more. It demands strength, clarity, and self-assurance. The problem with being too nice is that it puts you in a position where you're more concerned about what others think of you than about what you think of yourself. You start making choices not based on what aligns with your values, but based on how much approval you think you'll get. Over time, this erodes your confidence and your ability to assert yourself. Think about this. When was the last time someone respected a person who didn't know how to say no? A person who agreed with everything, even when it went against their own values or interests? A person who bent over backward to accommodate others at the expense of their own well-being? It's rare, if ever, because respect doesn't come from being overly agreeable. It comes from standing firm in your beliefs and having the courage to express them. The world doesn't admire pushovers. It admires those who stand tall, even when the wind is against them. Being perpetually nice can make you appear weak, indecisive, and easily manipulated. People may start to see you as someone who can be relied upon for favors, but not someone they would trust to lead or make tough decisions. In professional settings, this can mean being overlooked for promotions or leadership roles. In personal relationships, it can mean being taken for granted or even being disrespected. When you allow others to dictate your actions just to keep the peace, you're essentially giving up your power, your voice, and your identity. And once people recognize that pattern, they will continue to push boundaries, knowing you won't resist. There's another dimension to this. Being too nice often leads to resentment. You start to feel frustrated because deep down, you know you're not being true to yourself. You're constantly bending to meet others' expectations, and in doing so, you're ignoring your own needs and desires. Over time, this resentment builds up not just toward others, but also toward yourself. You begin to question why you let people treat you this way, but the answer lies in your actions. You allowed it. You trained them to treat you this way by not standing up for yourself when it mattered. Being nice can also rob you of opportunities to grow. Growth often comes from challenges, from disagreements, from moments when you have to assert yourself and fight for what you believe in. When you're always the nice guy, you avoid these moments because they feel uncomfortable. But in avoiding them, you're missing out on the chance to become stronger, more confident, and more self-aware. You're missing out on the chance to build the kind of character that commands respect, not just from others, but from yourself. The world doesn't reward people for being overly nice. It rewards people who know their worth and act accordingly. This doesn't mean you have to be rude, aggressive, or inconsiderate. It means you have to find a balance between kindness and strength, between empathy and assertiveness. It means recognizing that being nice isn't always the same as being good or being effective. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself and for others is to say no, to set boundaries, to challenge the status quo. People will respect you more when they see that you're willing to stand your ground, even if it means ruffling a few feathers. They'll respect you when they see that you're not afraid to speak your mind and take a stand for what you believe in. They'll respect you when they see that you value yourself enough not to let others take advantage of you. Respect, unlike being liked, is built on a foundation of strength and authenticity. It requires you to be honest with yourself and with others, even when it's uncomfortable. It requires you to prioritize your values over temporary approval. Too often, The fear of conflict or rejection leads to silence. It's an ingrained habit for many who label themselves as nice to avoid expressing their true thoughts, feelings, or desires because they believe doing so might upset someone or cause discomfort. This habit, however, doesn't stem from genuine kindness, but from a deeper need to be accepted, to avoid confrontation, or to maintain an illusion of harmony. When you sacrifice your voice for approval, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're erasing a part of yourself. Each time you stay silent when you want to speak, you're training yourself to believe that your thoughts and opinions don't matter. And worse, you're teaching others the same. Your voice is one of the most powerful tools you have. It's how you communicate your boundaries, express your needs, and share your truth. When you keep quiet for the sake of being liked or avoiding discomfort, you're allowing others to dictate the terms of your life. You might think that staying silent keeps the peace, but in reality, it often creates an unspoken tension. People can sense when something isn't right, even if you don't say it out loud. Your silence doesn't eliminate the problem, it simply shifts the burden inward. Instead of addressing the issue, you carry it with you as frustration, regret, or even resentment. Silencing yourself for approval often leads to a pattern of people-pleasing behavior. You start saying yes when you mean no, or agreeing with opinions you don't support, or going along with plans that don't align with your priorities. This might make you seem agreeable or cooperative in the moment, but over time, it chips away at your self-respect. Every time you suppress your true thoughts to make someone else comfortable, you're sending a message to yourself that their feelings are more important than yours. That imbalance creates an internal conflict, a battle between the part of you that wants to be authentic and the part that's afraid of rejection. Over time, this pattern can have a profound impact on your confidence. When you constantly prioritize external approval over your own truth, you start doubting yourself. You question your decisions, your worth, and even your abilities. You may find yourself hesitating to take risks or pursue opportunities because you're so focused on how others might perceive you. The fear of judgment becomes a prison, trapping you in a cycle of silence and self-doubt. The more you suppress your voice, the harder it becomes to find it again. It's like a muscle that atrophies from lack of use. The truth is, approval from others is fleeting. You can't control how people perceive you, and trying to do so is a losing battle. One day they might applaud you for being easygoing, the next they might criticize you for not having an opinion. People's approval is conditional, influenced by their own experiences, biases, and expectations. Chasing it is like trying to hit a moving target. You'll exhaust yourself and never truly succeed. The only approval that matters is your own. When you stop seeking validation from others and start listening to your own voice, you reclaim your power. You begin to make decisions based on what's right for you, not what will please others. Speaking your truth doesn't mean being harsh, rude, or confrontational. It's about being honest and authentic, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about recognizing that your voice has value and that your perspective deserves to be heard. It's not about proving others wrong or dominating the conversation, but about honoring your own thoughts and feelings. When you speak up, you're not just advocating for yourself, you're also setting an example for others. You're showing them that it's okay to have an opinion, to disagree, and to stand firm in your beliefs. There's a misconception that avoiding conflict preserves relationships, but the opposite is often true. Healthy relationships are built on open communication, mutual respect, and authenticity. When you sacrifice your voice for approval, you're not fostering genuine connections, you're creating a facade. People can't truly know or respect you if you're not willing to show them who you are. By speaking your truth, you give others the opportunity to understand and respect your boundaries. Those who value you will appreciate your honesty, even if they don't always agree with you. Those who don't value you might distance themselves, but that's not a loss. It's a necessary step in creating space for relationships that are built on mutual respect. Sacrificing your voice for approval also limits your ability to grow. Growth requires feedback, challenges, and sometimes difficult conversations. If you're always avoiding conflict or staying silent, you're missing out on opportunities to learn and improve. Discomfort is often a sign that growth is happening. By stepping into that discomfort and expressing yourself, you open the door to new possibilities, stronger relationships, and a deeper sense of self-confidence. The world doesn't need more people who blend in, who agree with everything, or who suppress their true selves for the sake of harmony. It needs people who are willing to stand out, to challenge the status quo, and to speak their truth. Your voice is unique, and it carries the power to inspire, to influence, and to create change. When you stop sacrificing it for approval, you begin to discover your own strength and potential. You start living a life that's true to who you are, not one that's dictated by the expectations of others. Being liked is something many people spend their whole lives chasing, but it's one of the most fleeting and shallow rewards you can aim for. The desire to be liked often comes from a place of insecurity, a deep-seated need to feel accepted, to belong, or to avoid rejection. While being liked can feel good in the moment, it is not a foundation for real success. Success is built on consistency, discipline, and the courage to pursue your goals relentlessly, even when your decisions make others uncomfortable or even upset them. Being liked might win you smiles and temporary validation, but it won't carry you through the challenges, sacrifices, and tough decisions that success demands. The pursuit of being liked often forces you to compromise your values. You start shaping your behavior to fit what you think others expect of you. You avoid taking bold stances or making controversial choices because you fear the backlash. You hesitate to chase big, audacious goals because they might make others feel insecure or envious. In this process, you dilute your ambition, your individuality, and even your vision. Instead of standing out as someone who is willing to fight for what they believe in, you blend into the background, becoming just another agreeable figure who avoids rocking the boat. The problem with trying to be liked is that it often leads to a life filled with half measures. You say yes when you really want to say no. You agree with opinions you don't truly believe in. And you water down your goals to make them more palatable to others. This might keep things smooth on the surface, but inside it creates a void. Deep down, you know you're not living authentically. You know you're compromising your own happiness and potential for the sake of approval from people who may not even be invested in your success. Success doesn't come from being agreeable or well-liked. It comes from being disciplined, focused, and unapologetically driven. People who achieve greatness in any field rarely get there by trying to make everyone happy. They get there because they're willing to prioritize their vision over the opinions of others. They're not afraid to be misunderstood, criticized, or even disliked if it means staying true to their purpose. This doesn't mean they are rude or inconsiderate. It means they have clarity about what matters most, and they're not willing to compromise on that. When you focus on being liked, you allow others to dictate the terms of your life. You give away your power by letting their opinions shape your decisions. This can lead to a cycle of frustration and disappointment because no matter how hard you try, you can't please everyone. People have different expectations, values, and perspectives, and trying to meet all of them is a recipe for exhaustion and mediocrity. Even worse, the people who like you for always accommodating them often don't respect you. They see you as someone who is easy to influence or manipulate, not as someone they admire or look up to. True success often requires making decisions that will make some people uncomfortable. It means setting boundaries, taking risks, and pursuing goals that others might not understand or agree with. It means being willing to face criticism, rejection, and even ridicule because you believe in what you're doing. This kind of courage isn't about being reckless, it's about being committed. It's about recognizing that the opinions of others, while they may sting in the moment, are not what define you or your worth. People respect those who stand firm in their convictions, even if they don't always agree with them. They respect individuals who are willing to take the harder path, who are not afraid to make tough choices, and who prioritize authenticity over popularity. Respect, unlike being liked, is built on a foundation of consistency and integrity. It requires you to stay true to your values and to show up with the same level of commitment, regardless of whether others approve of your choices. Focusing on being liked can also rob you of opportunities for growth. When you're overly concerned about how others perceive you, you're less likely to take risks or embrace challenges. You play it safe, staying within the confines of what's comfortable and familiar. But growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when you push yourself beyond your limits, when you face adversity head on, and when you're willing to fail in the pursuit of something meaningful. If you're too focused on being liked, you miss out on these opportunities because you're afraid of how failure or struggle might look to others. The pursuit of being liked is also inherently unstable because it's tied to external validation. People's opinions are fickle. They change based on circumstances, misunderstandings, and even their own insecurities. If your sense of self-worth is tied to something so unpredictable, you're setting yourself up for a life of anxiety and disappointment. Success, on the other hand, is rooted in internal validation. It comes from knowing that you're doing the work, staying true to your purpose, and making progress towards your goals, regardless of what others think. Being liked might open a few doors, but it won't keep them open. People might enjoy your company or appreciate your agreeableness, but that doesn't mean they'll trust you to lead, respect your decisions, or support your ambitions. To truly succeed, you need more than superficial approval. You need a reputation for being reliable, strong, and committed. These qualities aren't developed by trying to be liked. They're built through hard work, perseverance, and the courage to be yourself. Learning to say no is one of the most powerful skills you can develop, yet it's something many people struggle with. There's an innate desire in many of us to be helpful, to be seen as cooperative, or to avoid letting others down. Saying yes feels like the easier, safer option because it avoids conflict, keeps people happy, and earns you a reputation as someone who is dependable. But there's a cost to this constant agreement, and it's often far greater than the discomfort of saying no. When you consistently say yes to others, you are by default saying no to yourself. You're giving away your time, energy, and focused resources that are finite and irreplaceable. Every time you agree to something that doesn't align with your priorities or values, you're taking a step away from your own goals. You might tell yourself that it's not a big deal, that it's just this one favor, this one task, this one extra commitment. But these small agreements add up. Before you know it, your schedule is filled with obligations that don't serve you, and your energy is depleted by activities that don't move you closer to your purpose. The danger of always saying yes is that it creates a pattern, one where others come to expect your compliance and where you begin to lose sight of your own boundaries. People often mistake saying no for being rude or selfish, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Saying no is an act of self-respect. It's a way of asserting that your time and energy are valuable and that you have a clear understanding of your priorities. It doesn't mean you don't care about others or that you're unwilling to help. It means you're discerning about where and how you invest your resources. There's a difference between being helpful and being a pushover, and learning to say no is how you establish that distinction. When you don't say no when you need to, resentment starts to build. At first, it might be subtle, a small feeling of frustration when you agree to something you didn't want to do. But over time, as you continue to put others' needs ahead of your own, that frustration grows. You begin to feel drained, unappreciated, and even taken advantage of. The worst part is that this resentment isn't just directed at others, it's also directed at yourself. You start to question why you didn't speak up, why you didn't set boundaries, why you let things get to this point. This internal conflict can erode your confidence and make it even harder to assert yourself in the future. Saying no is also about creating space for what truly matters. When you're constantly saying yes to everything, you're spreading yourself too thin. You might be busy, but you're not productive. Your time is consumed by other people's priorities, leaving little room for your own. This can be especially damaging when it comes to pursuing long-term goals or dreams. Success requires focus and dedication, and that means being intentional about how you spend your time. When you learn to say no to distractions, unnecessary commitments, and things that don't align with your purpose, you create the freedom to invest in what truly matters. There's a misconception that saying no will make people dislike you or see you as difficult. While it's true that some people might be disappointed or even upset when you set boundaries, those reactions are not your responsibility. People who truly respect you will understand and appreciate your honesty. They might not like hearing no, but they'll respect the fact that you have the courage to stand up for yourself. On the other hand, people who react negatively to your boundaries are often the ones who benefited the most from your lack of them. Their disappointment is not a reflection of your character, but of their expectations. Saying no doesn't have to be harsh or confrontational. It's possible to decline requests with kindness and respect. A simple, direct response like, "I'm sorry, but I can't commit to that right now," or "Thank you for thinking of me, but I have to pass this time," can be both firm and polite. The key is to be clear and unwavering in your decision. When you try to soften your no too much, it can come across as indecisive or open to negotiation, which only invites more pressure. The ability to say no also sets a powerful example for others. When people see you prioritizing your time and energy, it encourages them to do the same. It shows that it's okay to set boundaries and that doing so is not a sign of weakness, but a strength. In many ways, saying no is a form of leadership. It's a way of demonstrating that you value yourself and your goals enough to protect them, even if it means disappointing others in the short term. Learning to say no is a process. It takes practice and courage, especially if you're used to being the person who always says yes at first. It might feel uncomfortable or even guilt-inducing. But over time, as you see the positive impact it has on your life, it becomes easier. You start to notice how much more focused and energized you feel when you're not overcommitted. You realize that by saying no to things that don't serve you, you're actually saying yes to the things that do. Fear of judgment is one of the most paralyzing emotions a person can experience. It creeps into your decisions, your actions, and even your thoughts, creating an invisible barrier between you and the life you truly want to live. At its core, the fear of judgment is rooted in the desire for acceptance. You worry about what others will think, how they will perceive you, and whether they will approve of your choices. This fear can be so overwhelming that it causes you to hold back, to shrink yourself, and to avoid taking risks that could lead to growth or success. The fear of judgment keeps you in a box built not by your capabilities or potential, but by the opinions, expectations of others. When you allow the fear of judgment to dictate your actions, you start living a life that isn't truly your own. Every decision becomes filtered through the lens of what will they think instead of what do I truly want. You begin to make choices based on how they will be perceived rather than on what aligns with your values or goals. This not only limits your potential, but also creates a sense of disconnection from your true self. Over time, this disconnection can lead to feelings of frustration, unfulfillment, and even resentment as you realize you're not living authentically. The irony is that most people are far less concerned with you than you think. They're too caught up in their own lives, their own challenges, and their own fears to spend much time judging yours. The judgment you fear is often a projection of your own insecurities. You assume that others will see your flaws, your failures, or your vulnerabilities, but in reality, they're not paying as much attention as you imagine. Even when people do judge you, their opinions are often fleeting, influenced by their own biases, experiences, and emotions. The weight you give to their judgment far exceeds the actual impact it has on your life. Focusing on the fear of judgment also gives away your power. When you let others' opinions dictate your actions, you're essentially handing over control of your life to them. You're allowing their views that may be uninformed, superficial, or irrelevant to shape your decisions and define your path. This is not only a disservice to yourself, but also a waste of your potential. Your life is yours to live, and no one else has the right or the insight to determine what's best for you. Success, growth, and fulfillment often require taking risks and stepping outside your comfort zone. This inevitably invites judgment because doing something different, bold, or ambitious challenges the status quo. Some people might criticize you out of jealousy, misunderstanding, or their own fear of change. Others might try to discourage you because your courage highlights their own insecurities. But these judgments are not a reflection of your worth or your capabilities. They're a reflection of the person making them. The key is to recognize this and not let their opinions hold you back. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that you cannot please everyone, no matter how hard you try. People's opinions are shaped by their unique perspectives, experiences, and values, which means they will always see things differently than you do. Trying to gain universal approval is a losing battle because it's impossible to meet everyone's expectations. Instead of trying to please others, focus on staying true to yourself. When you live authentically and pursue what truly matters to you, the right people will respect and support you, even if they don't always agree with choices. The fear of judgment also prevents you from embracing failure, which is a crucial part of growth. Failure is often seen as something to be ashamed of, something that invites criticism or ridicule. But the truth is, failure is one of the most valuable teachers you can have. Every setback, mistake, or misstep is an opportunity to learn, to improve, and to grow stronger. If you're too afraid of being judged for failing, you'll never take the risks necessary to achieve greatness. You'll stay in your comfort zone where it's safe but stagnant and miss out on the incredible opportunities that come with embracing uncertainty. Overcoming the fear of judgment starts with shifting your focus. Instead of worrying about what others think, ask yourself what truly matters to you. What are your values, your goals, and your priorities? When you center your decisions around these, you'll find that the opinions of others become less significant. Their judgments may still exist, but they no longer have the power to control you because you're grounded in your own sense of purpose. It also helps to remember that everyone who has ever achieved something meaningful has faced judgment. Innovators, leaders, and trailblazers are often met with skepticism and criticism because they challenge the norm. But they don't let that stop them. They understand that being judged is a natural part of breaking new ground, and they choose to focus on their vision instead of their critics. Their ability to push past the fear of judgment is what sets them apart and allows them to make an impact. Ultimately, the fear of judgment is just that, a fear. It has no real power unless you give it power. The more you confront it, the weaker it becomes. Each time you take a step forward, despite the possibility of judgment, you build confidence and resilience. You start to realize that the opinions of others don't define you, and that living authentically is far more rewarding than seeking approval. The more you focus on your own path, the less you care about what others think, and the freer you'll be to live the life you truly want. Having boundaries is not just about protecting your time and energy, it's about defining who you are and what you stand for. Without boundaries, you become a blank slate, allowing others to write the script of your life. This can lead to feeling overwhelmed, unfulfilled, and ultimately lost in a sea of other people's expectations and demands. Boundaries are not barriers meant to isolate you. They are frameworks that give you the freedom to live authentically and pursue what truly matters to you. They are a declaration of your values, priorities, and self-respect. People often avoid setting boundaries because they fear being seen as selfish. Unkind or uncooperative is a pervasive belief that saying yes to everyone and everything is a mark of generosity or goodness. But constantly prioritizing others at the expense of yourself is not sustainable. It leads to burnout, resentment, and a diminishing sense of self-worth. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out or refusing to help. It's about ensuring that your own needs, goals, and well-being are not consistently sacrificed. It's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. To show up fully for others, you need to protect your own capacity to thrive. One of the most significant challenges in setting boundaries is overcoming the discomfort that comes with it. Saying no or establishing limits can feel awkward, especially if you're used to being a person who always says yes. You might worry about how others will react or whether they'll see you differently. Some people might push back against your boundaries, especially if they're used to having unrestricted access to your time or energy. But their reaction is not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your boundaries. It's a reflection of their adjustment to the new dynamic you're creating. Healthy boundaries are essential for maintaining your mental and emotional well-being. Without them, you're likely to take on too much, leaving you